挑战未解难题。从实验室到临床，我们汇聚全球研发人才，打造了极具差异化的研发管线。通过兼具质量及效率的独特研发模式，将世界各地的患者纳入新药研发格局。为了持续供应全球患者，我们构建了大规模智能化的全球产业化布局，严守世界一流的质量标准，星夜兼程，全力保障患者用药安心。为了令创新药物普惠全球，我们建立了科学为本的商业模式，核心自主研发药物百月泽、百泽安，不断开创零的突破，领航新药出海进程。在中国，我们全力推动医疗服务下沉基层，助力实现健康中国2030宏伟愿景。我们坚信，改变是治愈未来的良方。在百济神州，我们积极履行企业责任，以向善的力量努力回馈社会。为了每一次希望，每一份荣耀，全球百济人正在前赴后继。攻破癌症是一场持久战，秉持百创新药、济世惠民的初心，我们跨越国界，为改善全球健康携手奋进。我们坚信，终有一天，癌症将不再成为人类生命与幸福的威胁。癌症作为重病之王，几个世纪以来，
各位来宾、各位同事。
Respected guests, ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, good evening. I am Chunxia from the Shanghai Chest Hospital. I'm so glad to be the moderator for the webinar today in this beautiful evening. Well, actually, this morning in the UK, we gather here to participate in this webinar supported by Beijing as well as Eat Healthy China and also the Medical Association in China to talk about the topic of the strategies for clinical research center management. And we're so honored to have this in-depth bilateral communication with the colleagues from UK. So here we have bilingual languages, and also we have the simultaneous interpretation for all the time. And you can just raise your questions in a QA session. So next, please welcome Secretary Chen to make an opening address. Please welcome. Respected Professor Eric Lim, Professor Nana Theodorou, respected colleagues, dear colleagues, and ladies and gentlemen, good evening, and of course, good morning to our friends from UK. Well, I'm Mr. Chang. I'm so honored to be the chairman of the conference today. Well, actually, with the Royal Brompton and the Harefield Hospital in the UK, we have a long history in the past. Well, for myself, 11 years ago, when I visited Cambridge University, I visited this hospital to have a look at their history. And tonight we have this opportunity, this academic feast, and I believe that for our bilateral communications, as well as all the audiences online, this would be a very valuable opportunity and also would be filled with knowledges and power. And for Shanghai Chest Hospital, as one of the leading hospitals in treating respiratory diseases, as well as research centers in China, we're dedicated to the research and education of the medicine and medicines and therapeutics in this field. And also clinical trials is one important part of that. And for this academic conference is the reflection of our concept of our management concept all way long. And after specific and very detailed preparations and just from the information, from the advocations, I see that in our alumni groups in hospital as well as universities, all of them, they know we would have this conference this evening. So I also expect that the information delivered by the webinar this evening. And finally, I would like to extend my warmest welcome to all of the guests. And also, I would like to extend my sincere thanks for all the people who have supported and organized this conference. So let's embrace this academic exchange with an open mind and to promote the more exchanges and thought just clashes with in this evening. So thank you for your opening address. And before we begin, here I would like to introduce the chairman of the conference today, Professor Nana Theodorou from the Royal Brompton and Harefield Hospital, and not only has a very experienced in oncology, but also has very much experiences in the management of clinical trials and strategies. So, and also Dr. Nana would give us a very great presentation on the topic of the operational and regulatory aspects of clinical trial delivery. So next, please welcome Dr. Nana to give us an opening address. Please welcome.
Thank you for the warm invitation and the introductions. So we're here today representing, obviously, a large city, London in the UK, and the work we do within our organization there. So as you can see, this type of work is becoming global, and research brings people together. We have a complex landscape in our organization. So you're referring to the Royal Brompton and Harefield hospitals, specialist hospitals amongst the 10 best in the work for many years for heart and lung care provision. And 4 years ago, our hospitals merged with Guy's and St. Thomas, and we became one organization. And that brought along a lot of opportunities in our academic partnerships with Imperial College London and King's College London, as well as Brunel University. And by joining up our patient cohorts, the scalability of our work and what we can do with our clinical trials has had a big impact. And we bring that here to you to share the work that we do, and also hear and learn from the work that you do as well. I come here with Professor Lim. He's a world expert, and he will be discussing his own, obviously, specialism and the great work he does in our organization to really support research that has global impact. So we look forward to finding out more about you and sharing our knowledge as well. Thank you.
Thank you for your wonderful opening address. So next, let's enter the academic session. So firstly, please welcome Dr. Nana to give us some sharings on the operational and regulatory aspects of clinical trial delivery. Please welcome.
I will just want to check that you can see my screen before I start. So I'm
yes,
here.
But it's not in full screen mode.
It's not in full screen mode. Start. Try again. Is that in full screen now, Eric?
It's not in presentation mode yet. It's still on working mode. But we can see it, so you should feel free to start.
I think I will start because I have got it on screen share. So I'm going to introduce a little bit about research in the UK as well, because we are part of a country that's very heavily regulated, and it's important for us to know what it is when we bring clinical trials. I'm going to give you an overview of what our organization is, a flavor of what our hospitals do. We're going to look at some of our clinical services and also our research themes for respiratory medicine. It's important, obviously, to deliver clinical trials that we've got the right facilities, and then we'll introduce a flavor of our numerous trials to give you an idea of the types of studies we support. And also an introduction to some of the research governance and legislation that are important, and maybe also the biobanking, because there are always huge opportunities for collaboration through that. So myself, as part of the introduction, I have mainly been dealing with research leadership roles. I have worked in our National Health Service that provides the general population here in the UK, life sciences, heavily involved with academia and clinical research, and also medtech, working with a lot of device companies and digital health as well as the pharmaceutical companies and drugs. I lead on strategy across our clinical group and also performance and delivery. As we said, compliance and legislation is important, as well as its partnerships. It is very important that we have strong collaborations as well as strong commercial partnerships in what we do. And very important that we've got the right income and budget to support and grow our activities. I have worked in healthcare innovation space for over 10 years, setting up large regional innovation hubs. This is the way forward to tackle some of the global health challenges we're seeing, and we are committed to using innovation along all our pathways and the way we manage our estates as well. And that is from concept to adoption and spread within the UK and abroad. My advisory roles are within our Health Research Authority, that's one of our regulatory bodies, the Human Tissue Authority, also dealing with the new artificial intelligence and digital services. We're working to produce national guidelines on the new type of studies.
Theodorou, sorry to disturb you. Your presentation is not turning. Maybe you can exit sharing and restart again, because we don't see your presentation turning. Sorry.
That's fine. No, thank you for letting me know. I'll just stop and we'll share again. And one of you tell me if you can see now the right slide, and with and if I move forward, can you still see the next slide now? Is that working? No. Is that working now? No.
Sorry, seems not working.
Okay. What about now? Can you see the next slide? Yeah. Okay. Thank you. So I will carry on. So the first was just an introduction about my role, but this is more important. It's about our organization, and that's what we want to share with you. So as I said, we are now part of a larger organization. So traditionally Brompton and Harefield hospitals, and still they focus on heart and lung services, but also now we are part of working with St. Thomas Hospital, which is the #1 in the UK hospital across the world. And it's also Evelina Hospital, it's a special pediatric service. So we have over 2.8 million patient contacts a year, to give you the scalability now and the potential, and 1.73 million outpatient visits. And the organization has 25,000 staff. So traditionally in the Brompton and Harefield, we had 8,000 staff. So obviously the scalability of the clinical academics and the experts we have has grown. This is obviously a list of some of the clinical services. Our pathways for research, they definitely align with our clinical service provision. And we start, for example, having asthma and allergy to chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. We are world experts in cystic fibrosis. And although I won't mention all of them, I want to bring it to the attention one of the biggest transplantation centers that we have, which is based at Harefield hospitals. So having access to these patient cohorts, it is very important, and some of the largest patient cohorts in the UK. Then we're looking at our research themes. I have broken them down just to give you a bit of a flavor. We'll concentrate on a couple of them. Acute respiratory failure is one of the biggest areas that we work and we do a lot of research on, especially about prevention and treatment of acute lung injuries. In asthma and allergy is a lot of basic research, basic science on the cellular and the molecular mechanisms. In the chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, the new areas that are coming is the use of artificial intelligence, and that is helping us to improve early diagnosis and as a result, prevention as well. Pulmonary rehabilitation is very big. We do have a very big rehabilitation offer, and that, again, the clinical services align with our clinical trials. Then I won't cover thoracic surgery and cancer because Professor Lim will cover that. But another big area we have is the interstitial lung disease. We have some more world experts, again, attracting some of the big commercial sponsors to understand mechanisms and basic science, to also developing new biomarkers and testing out new drug and drug discovery. I'm happy to sort of have any areas you're interested in later on. I want to move on now to some of our clinical trials and very importantly, our research programs. What we have is well phenotyped and large patient populations, sometimes, as I said, the largest in the UK and often internationally. That attracts a lot of academic and commercial sponsors. And we're able at the moment to offer more than 300 research studies within respiratory medicine, to give you the scale. So it's not easy for me to put a list up because the scalability is big. So last year at all, we had, just for those studies, just under 3,000 participants. We have obviously a lot of multi-center trials that they happen with across the UK, but also globally as well. This is just an example of one of our doctors, Patrick Murphy. He is the leader of a high priority national study, and he's got 10 active sites, and he's leading that study across the UK. This is also contributing to national guidelines. We also lead on a lot of grants, securing large grant applications. The next one, Professor Gaborota, he secured just over £2 million to work on a ventilation study. And obviously, we've got Professor Lim here. They attract global studies and they are top recruiters, not just offering to our patients some of the brand new treatments and therapies, but also contributing high quality data to these important clinical trials. So the way we measure our impact is not only offering to our patients taking part in trials that they match the disease, but also how we contribute to our national guidelines. So we are obviously, we've got the National Institute of Clinical Excellence that will promote and adopt the new treatments and therapies. And a lot of our clinical academics, they are part of those panels and contributing to the data to change those national guidelines. As an example, again, Dr. Patrick Murphy, he recently contributing to a national guideline through the Intensive Care Society. These are only very recent publications in 2024 in some of the most prestigious journals. And the same with Professor David Junction, reduction in asthma. He recently published in Lancet. And again, for us, that impact, the global impact, is very important in what we do. Also, Professor Zhang Stay, he's consultant in respiratory sleep medicine. He really looks at the respiratory physiology, and he's world leader. And again, in the work, he supports some of the key charities, patient charities, how we get involved with them. For example, for us, the British Lung Foundation is one of the biggest ones. Big part of my role is ensuring we have got the correct research facilities to support any type of clinical trial. We've got dedicated research departments that they ensure robust regulatory compliance, dedicated pre-grant support, so when we want to apply for grants, they have full support with costings and preparing the applications, and also when we are setting up studies, that's done timely and we can deliver as well within agreed timelines. We have an early phase accredited clinical research facility. That means they're highly skilled nurses, they're research fellows and pharmacists. And also that's supported by fully equipped laboratories. We have the Advanced Therapies Accelerator that started in 2021, and that is to be able to deliver our new gene and cell therapies. So through our King's College London Hospital, we do a lot of translational medicine and first-in-human therapeutics. And through the Imperial College London, we do a lot of precision medicine. We have dedicated research image centers and facilities, and also an artificial intelligence center. We are one of 4 genomic centers in the UK for extensive phenotyping as well of our patient populations. We host at St. Thomas one of the largest medtech hubs, which is specific for cardiorespiratory only, so very specialist, to work with a lot of collaborators, bring together academics and industry partners. And we host 5 of the UK's Medical Research Council centres. So that again demonstrates the ability to attract and secure these large grants. Research governance and legislation is important. We want to comply with all the correct legislation. As you can see, we've got examples of the Human Tissue Act, the Mental Capacity Act, Data Protection Act, all of that to safeguard the participants in research trials. We also want to protect our researchers and investigators by having clear frameworks we can work within. We are very keen to enhance the ethical and scientific quality of our trials, as well as minimize risk, especially some of these early phase first-in-human trials. We monitor practice and performance that's actively, and we promote good practice and ensure lessons are learned. I wanted to cover the ethical considerations. That's again very important, is in the way we review the relevance and value of the study. So not all studies will be a priority for us to deliver. We review the risks and the benefits, and also we try to have an inclusive approach of our pediatrics and those adults that they lack capacity. We prepare the appropriate documents, the information sheets and consent forms for our participants. We ensure that the right payments and rewards, especially for travel expenses, accommodation if required. And also we registered and publicize the results of our clinical trials. We ensure the selection criteria are appropriate. We may have to review those. And then we have robust and experienced, skilled research staff to approach, recruit and consent those participants. We ensure we have patient involvement from the design, and also we declare conflicts of interest, so it's that transparency and trust that we have with our participants, as well as the study team expertise. In our country, patient and public involvement is key. We want research to be carried out with or by members of the public. Nothing about them without them. So we have very active groups, and it's mandatory now in this country that when you apply for your regulatory approvals, you have got patient and public involvement. And I want to sort of bring to your attention the opportunities we have through our respiratory biobank. We have collected over 30,000 samples from 5,000 patients, and we have several active collections as we speak. These samples, alongside with linked data, are available to researchers from other hospitals, academia, and commercial companies as well. We collect explanted organs such as the lungs, resected lung tissue, also biopsies that could be bronchial and fine needle aspirates that we do, bodily fluids such as blood, serum, plasma, urine, and brushings and swabs. At the moment, we offer the data linkage, which is with all the imaging, the phenotyping, and archival biopsies as well. So again, that's something we want to promote, and the collaborations that they can come through this. We have our own efficacy approval, so we can approve our own studies that they have applications to use this tissue. So in summary, I introduced to you some of our world-leading facilities and the understanding of the large patient cohorts we've got within lung. That cannot be done without our international clinical academics being world leaders in our guidelines and publications. But very importantly is the work and the research we take on and deliver. It's to the highest governance and ethical standards. So I'd like to finish now, and thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Professor Nana, for your excellent presentation. You shared with us the general picture of your clinical research facilities and relevant policies and some of your recent works. Thank you so much for the sharing. In our hospital, actually, we have also done some work in the management of lung cancer. We have big patient volume. For last year, we have about 30,000 patient number admitted patients. We have over 20,000 early-stage patients and over 7,000 or 8,000 late-stage lung cancer patients. And we pay a lot of attention to clinical trials as well. We've done a lot of RCTs and IIT study as well. So I believe in our next session, we'll invite Dr. Nana Theodorou and Dr. Eric Lim, as well as from China side, Professor Zhang Peng will join the discussion session. Professor Zhang Peng also participated heavily in scientific and research, and he's also the vice president of Shanghai Pulmonary Hospital. The other panelists would be Dr. Liu Haipeng, who's also vice president of Shanghai Pulmonary Hospital. So we have a total of 4 panelists, and we have 2 preset questions, but not limited to these 2 preset questions. And the first question is, with the advent of remote intelligent clinical trials, with the impact of big data and artificial intelligence. So in remote intelligent clinical trials, it is very up to date, of course. So some of the conventional operation model in clinical trials are challenged. So the question for you is actually, clinically, how should regulatory authorities adapt to this evolution, including, for example, intelligent clinical trials, artificial intelligence, big data? How can they be involved in clinical trial operation in terms of national level regulation and hospital level regulation? You're actually the opinion leader in this aspect. So could you share with us your thoughts? Please, we can start with Professor Nana, please.
I just want to say I'm doctor, not professor, and I'll leave that to Professor Lim for clarity. So I have been part of the working groups, the national working groups in the UK, to discuss how we will manage on the regulatory front and adapt and create new guidelines and frameworks for artificial intelligence. So there has been a lot of stakeholder meetings within clinical academics, with industry and regulators. And at the moment in the UK, we decided against like a similar EU framework of legislating. but all those studies will follow the national regulatory framework of going through Health Research Authority for approval and review. And that review includes, is like reviewing the different aspects within each of the studies and doing like a risk register, risks and benefits. And then the MHRA, the Medicines for Human Regulation, that they regulate devices, they look at all those studies as well. They've got medical experts to review the safety of the participants and the safety, obviously, of the software. Cybersecurity is a big thing, and we're doing a lot to tighten that and provide assurances to the public and the participants for taking part. And I think in a few years, legislation will follow when we understand the remit of the trials a little bit better. So at the moment, they come through the Health Research Authority and the Medicines Research Authority to be regulated.
Thank you, Dr. Nana, for your excellent share. And next, we'll go to Dr. Eric Lim. Dr. Eric Lim is a well-known thoracic surgeon all over the world. And you shared with us a very excellent clinical trial, although it's a negative result, but we heard warm applause in the conference room. You are a very good clinician and you conduct very good studies.
Thank you very much for your kind words. With regards to remote intelligent clinical trials, we have already undertaken one here at the Brompton. It was a sub-study from the Ramon trial. And in the Ramon trial is a study I will talk about shortly, the value of surgery and multimodality management of oligometastatic non-small cell lung cancer. In this study, we wanted to evaluate the possibility of integrating electronic patient-reported outcomes using a healthcare app called My Cancer Companion, which we developed. And at the most basic level, we would introduce the ability to have remote intelligent trials by collecting data fed by patients into the app, into central servers that we will then download and evaluate. The regulatory framework surrounding the introduction of My Cancer Companion, or a digital health app to collect clinical data, was relatively straightforward. There are regulations around the app itself. It was not software as a medical device. It was simply a possibility to collect remote data. As a result, the software needs to be registered. The Research Ethics Committee for the Healthcare Research Authority needed to approve. Patients needed to consent to electronic data capture and collection. And on the back end, we were able to collect data across the country. There are clearly many advantages for remote intelligent data collection because patients can collect the data at any time. Unlike conventional clinical trials, where patient outcome data is collected maybe every 3 or 6 months, with remote intelligent trials, app-based data collection can occur every minute, every hour, whenever the patient feels like collecting data. In addition, there's an additional layer for which patients can share, for example, their step count. So they don't need to collect data on mobility. And that is automatically tracked and uploaded into the central servers. Now, because the software is just data collection, the regulatory challenges are much less. As you move into software as medical devices, where the software itself can make decisions that potentially may influence the clinical trial, then the regulations and the actual permissions are going to increase substantially based on the complexity of the trial. To be very honest, the term artificial intelligence is used very commonly and very loosely, and many clinicians or researchers don't really use it quite appropriately. Many research studies focus on machine learning to analyze data rather than artificial intelligence, which actually changes the concept or conduct of the trial. And as a result, all these will require different and separate layers of regulatory approval. As far as I'm aware, there isn't a true artificial intelligence trial, which I'm aware of, currently in thoracic surgery.
Lim 教授的精彩的分享。实际上，我们单
Thank you very
位
much, Dr. Lim.
建设
I think in our units,
近5年的时间了。
we've also been set up the database for almost 5 years. And in lung cancer, in lung transplants, we have conducted a lot of multi-center data in the municipal level in terms of transplants and something. So next, we'll ask Dr. Zhang Peng to share with us about that.
Yeah, we're so glad to have this opportunity to have this in-depth conversation with the English colleagues about the regulations and the strategies. Well, we say that especially in UK, under the guidance of NHS, after so many years of accumulations, well, you just converge all of the different hospitals and medical institutions with a very good medical background and very high quality data. That is the part that we really want to have. And also, we hope that in the future clinical trials, we may have more high quality data and better unanimous of characters of the data. And I think in the basic standards, we may follow the following principles, just as mentioned by the two speakers. Well, firstly, we should just obey the different policies, different regulations. Well, although compared with traditional clinical trials, we have more content and more extensions, but from the ethic perspective and from the regulatory perspective, we should obey the current regulations as well as the policies. And on the other hand, for all these consensus like regulations and policies and for the ethical considerations, well, we still have many limitations and those gaps to fill. But for the management of the AI, well, I think that is trained for the clinical management of the trials. And compared with the traditional clinical trials, the DCT in sponsors, in the ECs, and in the approval, as well as the responsibilities of the investigators, we would witness a lot of changes. So in the hospitals, well, after we give this project to the CRO, as long as we have great collaborations with the hospital, it is okay. But now if it is a DCT, it is a long distance, it is remote and has so many intelligent elements to participate. So we should have more comprehensive evaluations and to solve all the problems with high efficiency that the participation of AI that would bring to the project. And also in the hospitals, we should also establish the measurements as well as initiatives and the different regulations to protect the safety of the subjects. And for the investigators under this situation, we should also have more evaluations, especially if the investigators, they can just have this real-time work to fully adopt these new methods, these new technologies into the clinical trials, the researches. This is also a very important question because so many scientists, so many clinical doctors, they are willing to learn, but also they are expecting a stable or continuous way to do the trials and researches. They still need continuous training and learning from the new things. Well, in our regulatories and also the working staff. So we also would witness those differences. So this innovative modality and also the empowerment by the in digitalization. These are the important methods that we should solve the problems and meet the challenges. And also we would have a high requirements of the technology. In addition to some wearable equipment, and we also have this communications with the different indexes and parameters of the digital equipment and devices. Sometimes we should develop the algorithms to basically to increase the quality of the review, collection, analysis of the data. So no matter it is in UK or in China or in other countries in the world, we do not have a whole set of laws and regulations or expert consensus or clinical guidelines to give us a comprehensive solutions to all these problems. So we're all in the process of learning and also in the process of development. And during the process of the clinical practices, we should continuously enrich and explore what we have already known and to the unknown world. And in the future clinical trials, in the regulations as well as initiations and in the multiple large-scale clinical trials, we may have the opportunity to work together with our English colleagues to do more explorations and to have a faster and better trend of development. Okay, thank you, President Zhang Peng, for your comments. And next, we will save the time to Vice President Liu Haipeng. Well, I'm so glad to have this opportunity to talk with you and for the presentation by Dr. Nana. Well, I think we have such deep feelings and also the valuable sharing of their experiences in doing trials and researches. Well, for the DCT, that's like a new thing, as mentioned by different experts. Well, and also they have their professional insights into the DCT. When we have new things appearing on our table, they would come along with challenges as well as opportunities. Well, actually, in our hospital, this is a special hospital of lung diseases. We mainly treat like lung cancers, including internal medicine and surgery department, and also infective lung diseases, as well as the tuberculosis. So here in our hospital, that is one of the tertiary hospitals in Shanghai University. When we do the clinical trials, we have a uniform institute in the Shanghai municipal government. That is the Clinical Promotion Center in Shanghai. And under this authorized authority that we do, under the guidance of this promotion center, we do all the kinds of clinical trials, like the general organizations and regulations of all the different clinical trials. Well, for the collection of the data, and if it is convenient to do it, well, to clinical trials, the DCT just give us new opportunities. But during the collection of the data, although it is convenient, but how to establish a sharing mechanism of the data, I think this is also a very important question. We have just discussed about it. How to better share this data, because the sharing, it would have the safety issues involved. And during the sharing of the data in the early stages of DCT, the collection of the data, what about how to deal with the heterogeneity of the data collected? How to do a parallel the comparison, to do the homogeneous comparison of the different data collected. And for the data safety, how to set a rational regulatory system. Well, I think in the city of Shanghai, we would have this system from the top to the bottom, unified regulatory system for all the trials. So we would have early interventions in the early stages of DCTs to make these trials more standardized and to ensure the quality of the data collected and to just enhance the comparison of the data from different sites. So here, this is my thoughts and comments, and thank you. Okay, thank you for your wonderful comments, President Liu Haipeng. Well, I think we just hit the end of the first half. And for the second topic, well, in the previous discussions, we also mentioned about it. So for the biological samples, how to do the management? Well, maybe some comments from President Zhang. Okay, I will make a few comments. Well, here I know that in the UK, you have a very good UK biobank. This is a very good sample for us, example for us, and it is also open to the public. And although I heard some news that maybe after next year, maybe some limitations, but still the UK biobank is still a very good resource, a very good example from different perspective of operation as well as management, and we hope that it is still open to the public. And for the management of the clinical biological samples, we just take a very cautious attitude because now the collection of the clinical samples, most of them we are doing it prospectively. But for the prospective collection of the samples, we would avoid the wasting of the samples. Only when we know what are we going to do with the samples, then we would collect the samples with a purpose. And for the ethics, it is also very important to protect the privacy of every subject, of every donors, to protect their rights. And also for every patient, well, if they do not want their biological samples to make some contributions, we would have enough mechanism to give them solutions. Because also in clinical trials, we meet this kind of subjects. When we are at 50 to 60% of the clinical trials, the subjects, as I said, no, I don't want to do it anymore. And when we have a very good system to withdraw his or her biological samples from the cohort of the clinical trial. This is also very important. And also during the collection of the bio samples, we also should have the equity principles to protect the rights in different time points. And all of these different things, the details should be included. Especially we pay attention to the sharing of the information. We know that the sequencing information
Sequencing data like WES, RNA-seq, or single-cell seq can be shared on websites, but we still don't have very detailed data. Hopefully, through collaboration, we can also involve some very detailed data to dig with our international peers together about the essence of these data. Okay, Dr. Nana, can you briefly echo President Zhang's management about biobank? Do you have any comments?
Yes, just to echo, we have our own sort of Royal Brompton Harefield biobank, and that's important because we do have the patient cohorts. The way we ensure the ethics is that we do have ethics approvals in place from the national framework, and then we engage with those patient groups from the beginning and throughout. So from the beginning that they review the documentation, the consent forms, the information sheets, and also then we share some of the results of the projects that we do, and we showcase what the samples are used for. Our ethics is very broad to sort of share widely, not just internally, but externally. And for each application we have to access the tissue, we do have a committee of experts that they will review again with some of the patients on board, that this adds value to the outcomes of that disease group. So it's very important. We have changed our strategy of biobanking over the years. Again, the costs are high of storing tissue. The integrity of the tissue could be compromised. So we focus now on more the rarer collections of tissue that we collect and store. But some tissue that's easily available, then we do only prospective collections as a study and a project arises. And also we are developing a network of biobanks. As you say, UK Biobank is one of them, but more of the specialist respiratory ones. So we're working with King's College at the moment. So when we do have applications to access tissue, we can provide larger numbers by working with some of the nearby organizations. So again, we do have robust sort of standard operating procedures, ensuring the integrity and the quality of the premises we have and how the samples are handled. And we are looking now at more utilizing the data and again, the data linkage, because as we said, data is very important, but also doing more of the phenotyping and the genetics. So that is something new we've done to join up with the genetic service and to use the data in some of the samples that we have. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nana. I think that almost conclude our first session. I would like to thank Dr. Nana, the speaker, and all the panelists. And without further ado, let's enter into our second session. Dr. Eric Lim will be presenting us an introduction of Dr. Lim. Dr. Lim is from the Royal Brompton and Harefield Hospital. So welcome, Dr. Eric, to share with us about insight into UK-led academic studies. Welcome, Dr. Lim.
Thank you very much for the kind introduction. My name is Eric Lim. I am a professor of thoracic surgery, a consultant thoracic surgeon at the Royal Brompton Hospital, and professor of thoracic surgery at Imperial College London. I'm also a qualified medical statistician, and I am the co-chair of thoracic surgery research across the United Kingdom, and I've been responsible for the conduct, design, and delivery of many UK-wide clinical trials. And so today, I'm going to talk a little bit about UK-led academic trials, my involvement, how it comes about. I'm going to share some of my successes and also some of my failures that we can learn and discuss going forward. Here are some of my disclosures, the most pertinent of which I've also undertaken consultancy and advisory board services for Beijing, one of the sponsors for this conference. Clinical trials can be challenging for any center, institution, or country to complete, especially so in surgical trials, because in general, surgeons tend to be less willing to participate into such trials. Hence, thoracic surgical trials are very rare across the entire world. So we have industry-sponsored trials that we support, but today's talk is going to be about academic researcher-initiated trials that doesn't come with a large amount of pharmaceutical industry support. The study questions come from the investigators themselves, and so you can make it as simple or challenging as you would like it. In general, the more important the clinical question, the more challenging the trial design. And I'll talk a little bit about the limits of what can and cannot be completed, my current experience to date, and a key component to trial success. A successful trial, academic trial, starts with some key components and some planning. Firstly, you need to choose a very responsive and wired chief investigator. In general, in the UK, chief investigators who respond quickly to emails within minutes or hours and not days tend to have much more successful results. And I know that in China, you tend to have a much more responsive community with WeChat. And so, this might be much less of a problem. In the UK and across the West, I feel that funding, recognition, and co-authorship is very important for the people who are actually contributing to the trial, and not only to the heads of departments that take part in the trial itself. In general, the chief investigator needs to be a sharing person, one who's willing to be able to return back to the contributors of such studies. The chief investigator also has to be very organized and persistent, because it's often always a lot of hard work chasing people for trials and participation, randomization, and the results. The Royal Brompton Hospital where I work does not have a trials unit, and one of the key components of a successful trial is to have a very strong clinical trials unit. It's a long-term relationship. It's very similar to a marriage, so you have to pick your partner very carefully. In the UK, there are a number of surgical trials, of which my principal affiliation was with the Bristol Trial Centre. In my own experience, I find that trial centres led by methodologists and statisticians tend to be much more favorable to work with than those who are led by clinicians. When you are led by a methodologist or statistician, they are usually available. They're not seeing patients, they're not operating, they're not doing things. They often have a very high level of technical knowledge, so are able to give answers immediately, and the decisions are made in a very short span of time, and some decisions are made immediately. We have had a very good working relationship with the Bristol Trials Unit under the leadership of Professor Chris Rogers, a professor of medical statistics. The next step is to have a very important patient and healthcare oriented questions. One of the first trials we did was to look at keyhole surgery and look at the effectiveness of keyhole surgery compared to open surgery, an operation that was already being done by a significant proportion of surgeons across the country. The hospital you work in often has a research and development department, and ours is led by Dr. Nana Theodorou. The hospital institution usually acts as a sponsor, and the sponsor has many roles, such as addressing the planned research design, identifying investigators, ensuring the roles and responsibilities of all parties are being kept, ensure adequate provision for insurance, arrangements of the studies, ensuring that there is proper research and regulatory framework approvals, and putting it all in place, including the management of finances. And so the sponsor has a huge, important aspect or component when you are designing the academic-led trials. Funding stream is extremely important. Many academic-led trials fail because the amount of funds raised are too small. A well-funded trial is the principal prerequisite, in my opinion, for success, especially if you compare with pharmaceutical or industry trials, which often carry tenfold higher amounts of money per patient. The pharmaceutical trials tend to be run very well, very professionally, and this is because they are very well funded. And so academic trials need to compete and raise as much funds as possible to become at least similar to that for industry trials. The trial design needs to be easy to be able to fit into a clinical pathway. And the design of the trial needs to be adaptive. Sometimes you need to change in order to balance the number of sites opened with those sites who are actually recruiting, modify the protocols when issues are identified after the study has started, which were not picked up beforehand. And if necessary, modify the trial design as the standard of care changes, because trials can go on for 5 years, and often within the 5 years, things can change. Choosing your investigators is very important. It's very important to understand the principal time point of recruitment and who is actually recruiting into the trial. So for Violet, a surgical trial of keyhole versus open surgery, the surgeon is the recruiter. And so that's the cohort of people who are helping you recruit into the trial. For MARS-2, which is a trial of surgery for mesothelioma, it is a combination of the mesothelioma multidisciplinary board. So oncologists, physicians, and surgeons are the people who are going to recruit into your trial. Ramon, which is a trial for local consolidative treatment for oligometastatic disease, the lung cancer MDT members are the principal recruiters into the trial. it's very important that you and your investigators get along. And let me tell you a little bit about the WhatsApp effect during the Violet trial later. Last but not least, patients and advocates are very important for the success of the trial because we want to create national awareness so that the patients go to the centers and ask to be recruited. So that will be the best way to get recruitment to complete into the trial. And sometimes this occurs with patient days when they come in to learn about the trial. We set up Facebook, for example, WeChat groups, so that people can talk about it, understand it with patients. We talk to patients, advocates, like patient support groups. And also we impute into the trial design efforts to educate investigators on how to randomize patients, how to talk to patients, and how to successfully recruit patients such that they are randomized. I'm going to give you 3 short case studies that illustrates different points of what I've just discussed. So Violet is a trial, as mentioned, of keyhole versus open surgery for early small cell lung cancer. This is a 1.6 million trial for which I led the country. The delivery of Violet was, in my career, perhaps the easiest trial to be delivered. Principally because the co-investigators, as surgeons in the country, are all very good friends. And we were able to talk to each other nicely and recruit nicely in a fun and collegiate way. During this trial, we taught surgeons around the country how to randomize patients, how to speak to patients by providing information in a written script, audio recording what they talk to patients about, and giving them direct feedback. During the delivery of the Violet trial, there were no competing interventions, and the timing was perfect. It was before the COVID pandemic hit, so everyone was working optimally, and it was before Britain left the European community, the EU, and so staffing and support was very, very good during the era of Violet. You can see that the trial screened over 2,000 patients, randomized over 500 patients. And during this time, the randomization was very steady. And you see that we led multiple workshops with surgeons to teach them how to randomize. And look here at this point, when the recruitment rate started to dip, we started a WhatsApp group, which is like a WeChat group. And in that group, we encouraged and talked very friendly to each other, saying that, look, you need to randomize because the study is not recruiting the time, and everybody started helping out and getting the study to the finished endpoint. In the end, the study was published in the New England Journal of Medicine Evidence, the sister journal, and we are certainly very pleased with the outcomes, showing that results with keyhole surgery reduced complications, pain, and hospital length of stay. The next study, once we successfully implemented the Violet trial, was to then expand our trial influence across the country to determine if we can evaluate surgery for mesothelioma. And I think you've mentioned this very kindly in the introduction. So this is the behind the scenes about MAS-2, how it was developed and how it came about. It's over a 2 million study, of which 1.3 million was recouped through the National Institute of Healthcare Research. And before MAS-2, every clinical trial recommendation or every guidance around the world all recommended surgery for mesothelioma. Delivering MAS-2 was a bit like the United Nations, much more diplomacy involved, much more discussions involved, because we are dealing now with a wider group of clinicians and not just surgeons who are our friends. We had frequent mediation meetings of people who are raising objections to the trial design, so that wasn't very easy. At that time, there were no competing interventions apart from surgery, but there was a very polarized worldwide opinion on whether surgery should be evaluated at all. And some centers would not participate because they felt they did not have equipoise whether or not surgery would work. The timing wasn't very good with MAS2. For the first half of the study, it wasn't too bad, but then COVID pandemic hit, and then Brexit hit after that, greatly influencing the recruitment rates. And I'll show you the recruitment graph for MAS2. Here is where the COVID pandemic hit. And during the time before the COVID pandemic, the recruitment rate was quite steady. And once the COVID pandemic hit, like China, we had to stop operating for almost half a year or to that effect. And the trial recruitment greatly suffered after that. Fortunately, through lots of encouragement, we managed to actually get to the endpoint and in fact recruited 10% more than what was anticipated. We presented and published MAS2 in the Lancet Respiratory Medicine, showing that surgery for mesothelioma was associated with an increased risk of death compared to no surgery alone. Moving on, that we established the ability to recruit or randomize through multidisciplinary teams. We then had the ambition to understand if we can evaluate local consolidation treatment for patients with limited spread for non-small cell lung cancer, another 2 million grant, which I led across the United Kingdom. This is because many small studies at that time around the world suggested that survival was very much improved with local consolidation. And so we wanted to know whether that could be replicated across the United Kingdom. This is what it felt like organizing and delivering Ramon. During this time, the co-investigators were the entire cohort of MDT members for lung cancer. There were very polarized views, very strong vocal objections as to how the trial was conducted and indeed designed. There were competing interventions such as radiotherapy. Why would they consider having surgery as part of multimodality treatment? The timing was very, very bad. It was after COVID where people did not manage to yet get back up to scratch with regards to timing and administrative support. It was after Brexit, so the country itself, I feel, had very low numbers of supporting staff. And this is the current climate I feel that we are still in. In total, the accrual was very poor. We randomized 9 patients after 2 years and funding was removed. Major lung cancer studies centers did not participate in Ramon because of lack of resources, and that is usually an English word for the funding really wasn't good enough to compete with pharmaceutical or industry trials, because the study itself is quite difficult, complicated, and had a lot of involvement from many stakeholders. There was vocal disagreement with the trial design, and the lack of harmony within MDTs was obvious when we were visiting, such that the recruitment and actual screening of patients, I feel, was impaired. Those are my experience about the actual recruitment of multi-centered trials within the UK. And what's interesting is that some studies for which there are very good results, everyone feels like a superhero. And some studies with bad results or results which people don't want to hear, you end up feeling like a villain when you present the results. In conclusion, I would say that academic-funded clinician-instigated clinical trials are critical for the advancement of our specialty. None more so important in early-stage disease and those that involve surgery, which are non-industry funded. The most important component to trial design, apart from money, I believe, is friendship and harmony, which will lead to the successful delivery of the multi-center trials that I've had the privilege to lead. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Professor Lin. Indeed, in your sharing, we see that for an excellent or good PI, well, that is really difficult work to do. And for an excellent PI, must be fond of sharing with others and also would be a very good organizer and also would call for all those financial support. And also I agree that the design of the study is also very important. And also during your sharing that for the study of the last study, we just experienced the warm applause during the international conference because so many trials, because of the COVID-19, so many excellent trials. Well, they just did not go to the final point, but if your trial just finally got a very good result, and congratulations to that. And also, you mentioned that during the promotion of the studies, there are so many sections and links. We need to connect them all. Like for the movie Friends, I see the poster from the TV series Friends. Well, we should have those close contact with all the people, like the adherence of different members from the MDT, and also the communications with all the different parties involved. And also for the investigator-initiated studies, it is also very important. We also pay a lot of attention to those investigator-initiated study. We would have the financial support and the leadership and guidance from our hospitals. They would have a financial support, and also we would just follow the typical principles of the different elements, which is also a general principles. So I just enjoyed your sharing, and also we have 4 panelists. They are Dr. Nana, Dr. Lin from UK, and Professor Zhao Deping, Director of the Surgery Department, Thoracic Surgery Department. And also we would have 2 preset topics. So I will let the Chinese panelists to talk about it first, because Professor Lim is the thoracic surgeon. And also we are an international medical training center in this field. We have got a lot of achievements. So here for the second question to Director Zhou, how can international cooperation promote the development of thoracic surgery clinical research? What are some successful collaboration models? Okay, thank you for your question. And also I would like to thank Dr. Eric Lim for your wonderful presentation. Well, actually, in our hospital for the Department of Thoracic Surgery, that is the surgery center with great volume of surgeries with operations. Well, last year we have over 25,000 operations, but this year this number may surpass 28,000. And we have different lung cancers and those tumors in the airways as well as in the chest wall. But actually, internationally, we also have some international collaborations with the international communications. So here in this phase, we just see that from Professor Lim's presentations, he has done a lot of research work, very valuable works. And also I agree that we should have a very good just like the partners to do the trials. And during the research, we also need like regular communications. But well, actually, I think in Europe, like in UK, for the partners, we also would expect opportunities to cooperate. Well, I also see that the co-authors, all the co-authors in your studies, they are in European countries. But I just wonder if we have the opportunity in the future that maybe some co-authors may come from China and we can do some cooperations together. Okay, thank you for your sharing and comments, Dr. Zhao. And also, Dr. Lim, do you want to respond to Director Zhao's comments?
Yes, well, we are all very impressed with the amount of volume in Chinese hospitals for thoracic surgery. So congratulations on the actual amount of volume and throughput. And hopefully with collaboration in clinical trials going forward, we will be able to get answers much faster, quicker, and better. I can just share some experience in getting trials globally. Actually, most of the research we've done are UK alone, and there aren't any European participating hospitals. And we tried setting up Violet in Singapore, not quite China, but it was extremely challenging because of the difference in the regulation and also the reluctance or prohibition of the UK authorities to release funding to centers outside the UK. And so the collaboration with Singapore did not take off at all. In Ramon, we tried collaborating with Switzerland, but very soon had similar problems. I think there are several ways to collaborate with China. It depends on the design of the study. So retrospective studies for which data is already collected and to pull them together is very easy to do, very simple. And we did have experience such as the International Pleural Lavage Cytology meta-analysis, where we collected data across the world, including especially in Japan. Then there is prospective cohort study, where we agree on case report forms and we collect the data prospectively, which is a bit more challenging because there is regulation involved. And at the moment, we are combining the results of Violet with the results in Copenhagen and the results from China, which is the Sun Yat-sen Hospital with Professor Long Hao, so that we are able to answer the question if keyhole surgery can improve survival. So that's one example of collaboration. But going forward for clinical trial collaboration, I think that's going to be much more challenging and much more time consuming, but it doesn't mean that it cannot be done. And I certainly would be very happy to help and participate. Thank you.
Yeah, somehow we cannot hear from the Chinese doctors. Just a moment. Okay, so we have some GCP relevant study. For example, from the previous chemoradiotherapy to the targeted therapy to anti-angiogenesis therapies. We cannot hear them again. So phase 2 safety and efficacy evaluation, then we can start phase 3 clinical trials. So with more understanding, with the essence of clinical trials, we saw more and more phase 1 extension study. In phase 1 study, they could recruit over 1,000 patients. And we also see some regulatory efforts and improvements. So in phase 1 studies, sometimes there are also registry studies required by FDA. And on top of clinical trials, we also have the new modalities like the platform design study, umbrella design studies. So these novel clinical trial designs would help to further our understanding for clinical trials for rare tumors and subtypes of tumors. So I think nowadays we are also talking about patient-centered clinical trials design and PCT from ethical perspective view that poses higher requirement for us. And in this month, on top of the conventional trial design, we're also doing more exploration, and we highly anticipate our collaboration with our peers in the UK to promote inter-hospital or international collaboration to further deepen the clinical trials for new therapies for lung cancer. Thank you very much, Dr. Ren. And Dr. Nana, do you have any comments for this question? Because in some areas, we believe in Shanghai pulmonary hospitals, maybe we can conduct some novel kind of studies. Do you think it's possible?
Yeah, so
Dr. Nana, please. Yeah.
the way we try to tackle that, it is first of all consider some of the obstacles that will be ahead for this international trial. So one is regulatory approvals. The other important is funding and finances, and then is the agreements and the contracts. So we work closely with obviously our investigators. So from the beginning, we try and attend meetings and try and put sort of a plan in place on how this type of study that we want to collaborate on, what are the steps, sort of like a business plan to be able to address different aspects of funding, sort of the contracts and the agreements, and the delivery across and how the data transfers as well. But it is possible if you start alignment from the beginning rather than halfway through. I think that's definitely more challenging. And having, for us, close contact with our regulatory bodies, engaging with them. I also want to comment some of the new sort of study designs that we have seen. Traditionally, they started in oncology trials here in the UK at the platform trials, and now they're expanding in other specialties. That, again, they're quite innovative, and it will be interesting to see for surgical trials how maybe that could work to promote, again, wider collaboration with international partners. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Nana. So in my opinion, for investigator-initiated trials or IST studies, such collaborations are very common now. And in terms of that was in terms of sponsor-initiated studies. For investigator-initiated studies, we can explore more in the modality. Thank you for your sharing. I think in the interest of time, we would leave some time for both our chairs to give us a conclusion remark, because we know that we have a lot of leaders in our hospital. They can speak very good English, but we shall not let our translators lose their job. So our leaders are also speaking in Chinese now. So I will ask Professor Chang to give us a conclusion remark. Thank you. Dear distinguished Professor Eric Lim and Dr. Nana Theodorou, thank you so much for your engagement in the meeting. This is quite an excellent discussion, and in terms of the content of the meeting and in terms of the agenda, I think what we've discussed is just part of it. We cannot talk about all the possible modalities in our limited time. I think with more meetings planned in the future, we can have more in-depth discussions and communications to promote joint studies or collaborations on clinical trials. And today, I would like to give some special thanks. Special thanks to Dr. Nana Theodorou. Special thanks to Professor Eric Lim. Your insights and comments are truly valuable for us. And I would like to thank all of our speakers and panelists engaged in today's meeting. I would like to thank all the organizers behind the scene, and also many thanks to our online audience. With all your engagements and participation, this meeting would be even more impactful and influential. Last but not least, before we conclude our meeting, It just means the brand new start of our collaboration and communication. I hope it serves as a very good starting point to further deepen the collaboration between China and UK, especially in terms of clinical trials. And before we end our meeting, I would like to invite Dr. Nana Theodorou to give us a final conclusion remark. Welcome.
Thank you. We're delighted we've had this opportunity to join you and share some of our work, learn from you as well and see how the areas align. It's very important we do this knowledge transfer, that we don't work in isolation, but we work collaboratively. It is great that you listened to us and you sort of understood the work, and I think that's important. As much as it is, we have challenges. They seem to be similar challenges, although we are across different continents. And maybe we can learn from each other on some of overcoming those. And we look forward to the opportunities ahead. That lets this be the beginning of us working together to see what opportunities there are for collaboration of some of our patient cohorts, and also some of the treatments and the work that our clinicians like Professor Lim is doing. And again, we look forward to learning more and going and doing some more deep dives on areas of common interest. A big thank you to obviously Professor Lim for sharing his knowledge, for your doctors, for the host as well, for organizing and very well run a meeting. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for a very excellent conclusion remark and nice wishes for our future collaboration. Although today's meeting is brief, we have quite an informative agenda and very active interactions between each other. Both chairpersons' conclusion has drawn a perfect conclusion for today's meeting and input new momentum for our future collaborations. So I would like to thank everybody in joining our meeting tonight, and thank you so much for your engagement and active participation and great support. Let's wish in the future we could have even more opportunities for communication and collaboration. That concludes our meeting today. Thank you so much. We'll see you next time.
癌症作为重病之王，几个世纪以来，成为威胁人类健康的世界性难题。在全球许多地区，治疗癌症的药物仍难以企及，令患者的抗癌之路步履维艰。百济神州作为全球肿瘤治疗创新公司，一直在不断尝试、探索。
Beijing is changing that. We've built a company differently from the very beginning. It's built to do great science and to deliver impactful medicines while also addressing affordability with strategic cost and time advantages.
百济神州的创立就是为了帮助全球更多的患者和他们的家人。我们相信，通过推动生物医药研发模式的变革，我们能够为全世界的癌症患者带来更多可及可负担的创新药。
怀揣患者为先的使命，每一步跨越皆为患者全力以赴。为了研发出更多挽救生命的创新药物，我们不断突破生命科学边界，挑战未解难题。从实验室到临床，我们汇聚全球研发人才，打造了极具差异化的研发管线。通过兼具质量及效率的独特研发模式，将世界各地的患者纳入新药研发格局。为了持续供应全球患者，我们构建了大规模智能化的全球产业化布局，严守世界一流的质量标准，星夜兼程，全力保障患者用药安心。为了令创新药物普惠全球，我们建立了科学为本的商业模式。核心自主研发药物百月泽、百泽安，不断开创零的突破。 领航新药出海进程。在中国，我们全力推动医疗服务下沉基层，助力实现健康中国2030宏伟愿景。我们坚信，改变是治愈未来的良方。在百济神州，我们积极履行企业责任，以向善的力量努力回馈社会。为了每一次希望，每一份荣耀，全球百济人正在前赴后继。攻破癌症是一场持久战，秉持百创新药、济世惠民的初心，我们跨越国界，为改善全球健康携手奋进。我们坚信，终有一天，癌症将不再成为人类生命与幸福的威胁。癌症作为重病之王，几个世纪以来，成为威胁人类健康的世界性难题。